What's up, people? With the long-awaited release of Zack Snyder's Justice League on HBO Max, it is time for a new DC ranking. In this, I'm going to be talking about 11 DC titles. That's going to be both cuts of Justice League, as well as both cuts of Batman v Superman, because I think that's actually relevant to talk about both with the dynamic of what's going on with Zack Snyder's Justice League. So, Man of Steel all the way to Zack Snyder's Justice League, ranked worst to best right now. Number 11, the worst of all of these movies by a pretty sizable margin, honestly, is going to be Justice League 2017, also known as Justice League. This is an absolute disgusting existence. This is a movie that when I first saw it, when I go back and look at that review, I was way too forgiving on it. It was a movie that I thought was okay, it's passable, it's whatever. Should have never been a movie that's this disappointing, but it doesn't offend me on the level that it does now. The more that the news has come out since 2017 about what honestly happened with this movie, with it being literally stripped from Zack Snyder by the studio. He left the project or was forced away, we'll never know, because of the suicide of his daughter. And in his absence, the studio hired Joss Whedon to come in, take his 4-hour plus rough cut footage and hack it down to 2 hours. He reshot half of the movie in his style, and Joss Whedon's style does not mix with Zack Snyder's style at all. They're probably two of the least compatible filmmakers out there. And what we got was this hodgepodge, studio, everybody's hand on the cookie jar, garbage, mishmash piece of shit. This is a movie that I have yet to watch since theaters. I've grown more distasteful for it as time has went on. And now with Zack Snyder's Justice League cut, which obviously you will see higher on this list, there's no reason for me or honestly anybody else to ever watch this cut of this movie ever again. This will stand in history as one of the worst and most gross moves by a major studio on a blockbuster picture ever. Coming in at number 10 is going to be Suicide Squad, and you might see an updated DC ranking in the future that might have an A cut of this movie. I think with the success that we're seeing with Zack Snyder's Justice League, there's no reason not to give us the A cut of this movie, because there's a lot of things apparently the studio did to fuck this one up too. But this is the only one we got to go on. This is a movie that I can have fun with. I can watch it as some stupid background noise and enjoy it decently enough, but to be honest with you, it's a movie that is all face value entertainment and there is nothing below the surface. This is where you get a whole bunch of different DC villains together, most notably a lot of Batman villains. You put them together in a team and you say, okay, we got to put you all together to go fight this bigger threat. The bigger threat is possibly, if not the definitive worst villain in the entire DC universe thus far, with the fucking witch, whatever, what the hell was her name? Google? The Enchantress. Yes, okay, so the Enchantress plus her Egyptian god brother, whatever the fuck that was. Absolutely horrible CGI mess, disgusting villains. Like, you look at them and you're like, what the hell am I looking at? You move on beyond that. Really, the main thing that holds this movie together is the cast, because the cast is awesome pretty much all the way around. The chemistry, the performances that the cast gives, even though this is in what is, pretty popularly known as one of the worst DC movies, there's very few people that will shit on this movie that won't say, but I like the cast, I want to see them again in other better films. Like Will Smith, Margot Robbie especially. I mean, they're just great. Then you have the problem of the Joker. The Joker was supposed to be one of the main villains in this movie and was supposed to be a recurring force that was thrown throughout this runtime, and his screen time was hacked down to just a couple of scenes to where he's absolutely wasted in this. And the little bit that we get, it's not really all that impressive. Not that big of a fan of the little glimpse that we got of Jared Leto's Joker in this film. Action's okay, passable at best. It's just a movie that never, at any point in the runtime, reaches the potential that it has. And this is another case where the studio took it over, recut it, had the actual company that cut the trailer together re-edit David Ayer's film and make it into a gigantic music video, and it shows. WB. Number 9 is going to be Batman v Superman Dawn of Justice, the theatrical cut. Now, when I saw this in theaters, I really felt conflicted because there are so many things in this movie that I thought were awesome that were immediately followed by things that just baffled me and confused me. And so I'm going to get much more in depth with all of that when I talk about the ultimate cut that's going to be higher on this list. But as far as the theatrical cut, why it's this low, again, WB, made this 3-hour movie with Zack Snyder. They hacked a half an hour out of it to make it more presentable for theaters, I guess, or to make it more to their liking, to try to fit more into the runtime that Marvel was going for. And that 30 minutes that got taken out of this film damn near ruins it. I've yet to watch the theatrical cut again since I've seen the Ultimate Edition, because the movie just feels disjointed. There's no flow. There's things that happen where the setup scenes were taken out, so they really don't make any sense. You just kind of have to accept them for what they are. A 3-hour movie flows more and feels faster and better paced than a 2.5-hour movie. That right there should tell you the main problem with the theatrical cut of this film. And to me, with the Ultimate Edition, or might as well call it the Batman v Superman Dawn of Justice Snyder cut, there's no reason to ever watch this cut again. Now, for a little context, from here on up, these are all movies that I enjoy. Everything below is movies that either are just passably okay or movies that I really don't like. Everything above this, huge gap. I enjoy everything from here on out. Number 8. Wonder Woman 1984. This one was a pretty big disappointment for me because I really love the original Wonder Woman movie, and to me, that was one of the biggest sequels that I was most anticipating because of how great Patty Jenkins did with the first movie and how much I just loved Gal Gadot in that role. So when you get to this movie, they kind of shed some of the grounded realism and some of that real world feel of the first film and really go for a much more flashy, poppy, very throwback style comic book film that to me just wasn't really what I wanted. You know, there's a lot of people I could see that watch this, they really enjoy that take, and that's kind of what they want from Wonder Woman because they grew up with her and watched the cartoons and watched the old show. That's fine. I did not. So my point of reference is the first film, and I love that. This is night and day difference. This is all bubblegum. Didn't really think that the storyline involving this little MacGuffin item that grants wishes was all that interesting. I thought Cheetah was intriguing at first, didn't really thought that the character wrapped up all that well in the movie. Didn't even really care for, was it Maxwell, the other villain here played by Pedro Pascal. Didn't think that he was all that great. Thought he was just chewing the scenery like crazy all the way through it, which is, it's fun to watch him as an actor do that, but it just feels over the top for the movie. And by the end of it, there's just things that happen in the course of this story that to me don't fit with the continuity that's already been established for the DC universe, and that is a problem for me. But with all that being said, it's still a fun movie. It's still an entertaining movie. It's still a Wonder Woman movie that is mostly enjoyable for me. So I can watch this, I can have a good time with it. It's not one that I'm going to never watch again in continuity or anything. It's just not exactly what I wanted for a Wonder Woman sequel. Number 7, Birds of Prey, also known as the Harley Quinn movie, also known as gigantic title. It's a movie that is fun, that is innocently enough, just a good time. You go, you have goofy little time with Harley Quinn and having her go through this little R-rated adventure where she's trying to take out Black Mask, and if you watch it just for that entertainment, it's actually a pretty damn good time. I don't think that the R rating was necessarily needed, which is strange for me to say, but for me, it's the same movie if you took out a little bit of blood and a couple F-bombs. I don't think that the Birds of Prey side of storyline was even needed in this. I think this could have survived even better as just a Harley Quinn movie. It's basically a backdoor pilot for a eventual Birds of Prey movie that we might get, we might not get. It's a fun time. It's a movie that it's never going to be one of my favorites. I definitely don't think it's anywhere near as bad as some people made it out to be when this came out. It's just a innocently good time with Harley Quinn. Number 6 is going to be Zack Snyder's Justice League. Now, there might be some of you right now that are jumping in the comment section because it's the new exciting thing and I don't have it at number 1 and you're already pissed. Look, guys, like I said, movies from here on up are all movies that I really, really enjoy. I gave this movie a 4 out of 5 in my review. I like this movie. Number 6 is not a fuck you to this movie at all. I think Zack Snyder's Justice League, regardless of my issues with it, is an awesome achievement. And I'm glad that it exists, and it sets a very good precedent for respecting the vision of a director that you signed on to make his vision. WB or any other movie studio. There is certainly a lot of instances where studio interference helps a movie. That's where people call it collaboration. And then there's times like this where a studio rips it from a director's vision, destroys it, and then still has the balls to stamp Zack Snyder's name on it as if that's his movie. And that is absolute meddling. That is destroying the movie. When you see this 4-hour cut of this movie and you see all of the ideas that Zack Snyder had and everything that he was going for and what the original vision of this movie is, it's absolutely mind-boggling how anybody wearing a suit at WB thought that any decision that they were making post his exit improved this movie at all. Every single thing about this film is better than the theatrical cut. There is nothing in that cut that I think was a slight improvement or something that I miss in this 4-hour cut. It's an achievement. The fact that we as fans and Zack Snyder as a filmmaker got enough excitement going for this that he got to complete this and release it. And I'm very excited for the possibilities of what that might bring for the future, like an Ayer cut of Suicide Squad. The action is all pretty good here. I think that there is some really good big moments throughout this movie that may give it this very epic feel. I think that Steppenwolf is far and away a much more better, interesting, and better looking for sure villain in this cut. And I think that the little teases of Darkseid has this little looming tension throughout it that hopefully we get to see come to fruition with another film. Otherwise, I'm going to be a little bit upset. And there is a lot better utilization of all of these characters, a lot more exploration of their backgrounds, a lot more introduction to who they are. And overall, I do think that it is a nice little rounded out third chapter for this Man of Steel journey that Zack Snyder started. And even if this is the last film that he directs and maybe somebody else comes in and continues on the Snyderverse with some other directors, some other creative forces, that little arc that he has for Superman comes to a nice little crescendo here and leaves things open to where, again, I want another goddamn Man of Steel movie. But with all that being said, I do think that there is a better cut of this movie in existence that's somewhere around the 3-hour mark. I understand for what this project is and for what the release is, there's no reason whatsoever to take out any ideas and just make it as long as possible and put it all out there for the fans to see. But for my own enjoyment, for rewatchability, and just as a film, I do think that there is a 3-hour cut that could take out some of the fat, take out some of the sequences in here that really don't add to anything, namely the Flash sequence where he's trying to get a job and has to go save, presumably, Iris West in that car. It's just a long music video sequence. Take some of that shit out of here and make it a cohesive, well-flowing, rounded out, epic 3-hour movie, and this just isn't that for me. Love the fact that it exists. There's a best cut of Justice League that is still yet to be seen, I think. I also don't think that any of these characters are at their best in this movie. I think that I've seen better Batman, I've seen better Aquaman, I've seen better Wonder Woman, I've seen better Superman in their individual films as well as BVS. And unfortunately for this movie, we don't really know if there's going to be a continuation. So I'm kind of at a bit of a stalemate there with some of my excitement, my enjoyment, because I understand it's not the movie's fault, and it's certainly not Zack Snyder's fault, but if we don't get any continuation of this, then my enjoyment of this movie is going to go down a little bit because I want more. I want answers to the questions that arose in this. But if we do get follow-ups, when I do a future DC ranking, this might go up. Coming in at number 5 with a razor-thin difference between this and number 6 for me is going to be Batman v Superman: Dawn of Justice, the Ultimate Edition. Now, this is the best cut of this movie for sure. Like I said with the theatrical edition, I saw that in theaters. It was a disjointed mess. I was conflicted all the way through it and was so disappointed with my reaction coming out of the theater. You watch the Ultimate Edition and you're like, why the hell would you not release this cut of the movie? Why would you hack this down and quite literally destroy the movie by just taking out simple character development, simple plot development, things that are integral for the story of this movie, you fucking incompetent morons. You watch Batman v Superman Ultimate Edition, I think Ben Affleck's Batman is fucking awesome. He's my favorite Batman. I love the continuation of Man of Steel with the journey of Superman. I know people are saying, it's too dark, it's too glum. What the fuck ever. I think that his whole journey about trying to find his place in this world that doesn't know how to accept him is very understandably realistic, and I actually like that exploration of the character. I like this whole, the fight scene between Batman and Superman is great, but the action sequences that surround that are even better. The whole Batman warehouse fight is by far the best Batman scene that I've ever seen, and I want more things like that. That's part of the reason why when I watch Justice League, I'm like, where's that scene? Where's a scene that's like that? There's just a lot of very deep, epic scale ideas that are presented in this movie that were going to be carried out through a couple more films that I really appreciate the ambition for. Unfortunately, the movie does crumble under a bit of that ambition for me because it feels like it's rushing. It feels like Batman v Superman is something that should not have happened in this movie. It feels like the rushing of getting to the death of Superman is just like, all right, we got to kill him so we can bring him back in Justice League. You have the whole new version of Lex Luthor with Jesse Eisenberg that I have never liked. I understand trying to do something different. I understand trying to do something new. I've never liked his take on this character. No cut of that movie will ever fix this for me. I don't even really care for a lot of the individual scenes in the movie that kind of bog it down for me. Namely, in the third act, a big epic what the fuck is it? Doomsday fight, where Lois Lane, I swear, there's like a 10-minute period there where she just keeps fucking around with this little kryptonite spear that aggravates the piss out of me every time that I watch it. She takes the spear away from the Batman and Superman fight and she throws it into the water, right? Then she goes and she stands and she watches the Doomsday fight go down. And then she realizes, oh shit, they could probably use that spear. So she goes back to try to get it. Then rubble falls on top of her. Now she's drowning with the spear. Now Superman has to leave the fight, go save her, and as soon as he brings her up and she tries to revive Superman because he almost drowned, she throws the spear away from him again. And it's like, fucking god, the goddamn spear! All in all, this is a movie that is very epic and memorable and awesome in a lot of aspects, and it's a movie that is very confusing and dumbfounding and disappointing in a lot of aspects. And even though the Ultimate Edition is by far the best cut of the movie, it's still a cut that has a lot of inherent problems for me. Number 4, from here on up, are movies that I absolutely love. Number 4 is Shazam. Now, Shazam is a movie that I had no interest in for a long time. I had no real ties to the character, no experience, no knowledge of the character. It seemed like it wasn't going to be part of the DCEU. It was going to be this weird Elseworld thing, and that made me care about it even less amidst all of the BVS, Justice League, WB drama. The movie finally comes out, and it's an absolute blast. This is a movie that definitely nails kind of the bridge between the tones that Marvel is famous for and the tones that DC is famous for. It's kind of like a happy medium between those two, to where you have this epic, mythic scale to what's going on and these mythic characters, and then you have this very family-friendly, fun, enjoyable vibe that it's a movie that you can watch with your kids, you can watch by yourself, and you can have a blast watching it the entire time. The jokes, like Zachary Levi and his delivery of being this kid who is now a superhero adult, and what would that person do, what would that person think like, I think they nailed that perfectly. I don't even actually mind some of the more kind of cookie cutter villains that we get in this, because I think it kind of adds to the tone of the movie that it's going for, so I have fun with that. The action sequences are all pretty good. The whole third act where, you know, not to spoil anything, the family kind of comes into the events at the end there. I thought that was great. It's a movie that I have very little negative to say about it. I enjoy the hell out of it for what it is. In the overall scheme of things in the DC universe, it does kind of stand out as the more lighthearted movie in there, but I think over time, the spectrum of what DC is giving us will make it feel a little bit more at home with all of the other movies like Man of Steel, like Batman v Superman, than it currently feels like. Number 3, Wonder Woman. These next 3, honestly, are pretty tight for me. When I say I love everything from 4 up, I really love everything from 3 up. I mean, these are like getting razor thin difference, but Wonder Woman for me comes in at number 3. This is a movie that came out and was the shining ray of hope for the DCEU, because at the time we had the disappointment of BVS, the disappointment of Suicide Squad, the writing was on the wall that Justice League was going to be a gigantic failure, and then Wonder Woman comes out and blows everybody's minds at how awesome that it is. It's epic in scale. You fall in love with the character of Wonder Woman and Gal Gadot's performance, which she was kind of a bit of a red flag, like, oh, does she have the acting prowess to pull this off? And she does. She embodies the character for me. I think the action sequences, namely the No Man's Land, is incredible in this. I love the back and forth between her and Chris Pine. I think that they are the best, like, love interest chemistry in this universe by far, and even better than a lot of shit that I've seen in Marvel. They're off the charts good with their electricity. I think that the fish out of water story about this woman that's been in this mythical island and trained by only women, Amazonian warriors, then going off to Earth and finding out how fucked up humans are is really intriguing. And the movie has a really great balance of going for that classic, you know, DCEU, gritty, grounded, mythic, epic vibe to it, while also balancing it out with some more family-friendly, fun, you know, humorous elements to it, that this was kind of the first movie in the DCU up to that time that kind of had that, and it balanced it perfectly. It didn't feel like this reactionary change. It felt like it made sense for the character and for this movie. Movie is held down a bit by the third act, and that's the only reason that it's not like #1, because I fucking love this movie. Third act is this bit of a bait and switch with the villains. You get the reveal of Ares, and it's this character that we've been around the whole time, that it's a twist that really doesn't have any impact on you, and then it becomes a big CGI fight. Now, I will say I don't hate the third act near as much as a lot of people. Like, a lot of people put this movie down on the list because of that third act. To me, it's just enough to knock at 1 or 2 spots, but it's not detrimental. I still enjoy it. I think that the sacrifice of Steve Trevor really boosts the third act especially, and I still enjoy it. But the third act is the weakest part of the film, and it's sizably weaker than the first 2 acts. Number 2 is gonna be Aquaman. Now, I understand completely that a lot of people think that this movie is too hokey and they don't really enjoy that tone of things. And you know what? For whatever reason, when it bothers me in Wonder Woman 84, it actually works for me here. Maybe it's because I don't have a point of reference for a previous Aquaman movie that makes it feel strange to me, but to me, the guy that talks to fish, it's kind of impossible to get away from a little bit of hokiness. You know, the octopus doing the drums, that's too far. That's a little too fucking far, James Wan, but beyond everything else, I think that it does have a really cool balanced tone of, again, epic, mythic character. This guy who's like right out of a heavy metal video. Like when he comes in the third act riding that giant Leviathan monster, he's like, ah! But the story that you go on with Arthur, where he does deserve the throne, he is the heir to Atlantis and just doesn't really want it and doesn't really want to be that guy and has to go along this journey of finding out why he has to be that guy and battling his own family with his brother and trying to save his mother. And I just think it's an epic story. It's this whole globe-trotting adventure that has a little bit of an Indiana Jones vibe, but staying very grounded in a superhero movie, to where I just enjoy the living hell out of it. This movie just works for me. I can't really defend it other than saying that I just enjoy the living shit out of it. Mara, of course, since we found out exactly who Amber Heard is as a person, that kind of stains the movie a bit, but even before that, not the greatest chemistry in the world, but she's not the biggest integral part of the movie for me anyway. And there's certainly, like I said, some goofy shit in here that I could definitely do without. I don't need that. But coming in at #1, one of my favorite comic book movies of all time, and that is Man of Steel. I fucking love this movie. I am not a Superman guy. I did not grow up loving Superman movies, loving the Superman cartoon, loving the Superman comics. I was always a Batman kid, but I was one of the rare ones that did not also love Superman. To me, I just always thought it was a bit much. I always thought he had way too many powers, and it was like, this fucking dude has a utility belt for every situation ever. I can't get invested in him. This was the movie that made me a Superman fan. I watched it just out of curiosity, liked it a lot, and every single time that I have rewatched this movie, I have went from liking it a lot to really liking it, to loving it, to absolutely adoring it, to it being one of my favorite comic book films of all time, possibly top 5. I love it that much. I do not understand any of the criticisms that people hold against this film, especially at Zack Snyder, and like being why is Superman like this? Why is he not this hopeful, smiling jackass the whole time? Why is he actually feeling human-like things? Why, when you have a Kryptonian fighting 3 other Kryptonians, do buildings and shit get broke along the way? He should be out in a field somewhere so people don't get their feelings hurt in the middle of the battle. It's like, guys, this is going for a real, grounded, modern, epic take on these characters. If one godlike being came down and fought one other godlike being in a major city to the size and the scope of Metropolis, some shit's gonna get broke, some people are gonna die inevitably. To me, never understood that criticism whatsoever. I think it adds much more depth, much more of this epic scale, much more of this grounded stakes to this movie, to where Superman feels all of it. When you get to the end and he has to make that choice between the family that's in the middle of that ray beam or taking out Zod, and the choice that he makes, I feel that. I feel that for the character. I think it's integral for the character. It makes sense. I'm tired of defending it. I love Man of Steel. I think that it is a fucking masterpiece. I think it's a perfect film. There is nothing about this movie that I criticize whatsoever, that I even think it could be improved on. I think it is a perfect masterpiece. and it is my number one. So what do you guys think of the DCEU? What is your ranking? If you want to include the alternate cuts like I did, or if you just want to put the movies in general, let me know down below what your favorites are. Are you on this extreme hype train where Justice League jumped up to your number one, or are you somewhere in the middle with me where you love the fact that it exists, but there's still some problems there that we need to acknowledge? Let me know your thoughts down below, and we will talk about the DCEU. Keep your eyes peeled, because tomorrow, Sunday, around noon, me and Durbin are going to be doing a State of the DCEU where we talk spoilers for Justice League, as well as what this might mean for the DCEU. Are we going to get more? Is WB going to be forced to acknowledge this with the huge numbers that they're inevitably going to be getting? Or is this going to be what they called it, a cul-de-sac? Keep your eyes peeled for that coming tomorrow. Thank you guys for watching. Like, share, hit the subscribe button if you are not already a subscriber. I got reviews for a lot of these DC movies. I got previous rankings. We got a lot of State of the DCEU episodes, so click for that. Thank you for watching as always, and remember, opinions are like assholes, but that doesn't mean that you have to be.